okay? Because I don't like them. When I'm driving on the road, I don't like those trucks. Yeah, we're gonna watch some Not Just Bikes.
I make videos about how walkable cities are more efficient, more environmentally friendly, more financially sustainable, and just better places to live. So, given these benefits, it's not surprising that cities all around the world are trying to build more mixed use walkable neighborhoods and viable alternatives to driving. Unfortunately, as engineers, planners, and advocates try to repair the mistakes of the 1960s and build the cities of the future, there's a growing trend that could undo all of that hard work: the growth of SUVs and light trucks. I really don't think it's an exaggeration to say that if there's a positive goal that cities have for the future, SUVs fight against that. They're just bad for cities. Really bad. If you're walking and you get hit by an SUV, you're 3 times more likely to die than if you've been hit by a regular car. And
Which is pretty apparent, right? Like if you're getting smacked by this fucking thing, it's just gonna go right over you. As opposed to like if you're driving like a normal car, you're gonna go up on the hood and you're gonna get banged up, but you're probably gonna be okay. Um Also, like I live in Minnesota, okay? Snow piles up on either side of the street. But there's also still street parking, which is kind of a problem because when people are parked on the side of the street, it means that the snowplows can only plow a certain portion of the street. And these cars, these trucks, are bigger than all of the other cars, which means that there's less space on the side of the road for people to park on, which means that there is less road to drive on, meaning that essentially side roads become almost like that would normally comfortably fit 2 lanes of traffic going in opposite directions do not.
if you're in that regular car, you're more likely to die in a crash if it's with an SUV. SUVs are more likely to hit people in the first place because they're big, unwieldy, and have poor visibility. SUV drivers themselves are twice as likely to be killed in a rollover than car drivers.
Hmm. Are they safer though?
SUVs make congestion worse because they take up more space on the roads, they have terrible fuel economy too, and the
I
list
think these cars make people feel safer. I don't think they actually make people safer.
goes on and on. And to be completely honest, I'm making this video because I'm absolutely fed up with the conversation around SUVs and light trucks. We're constantly being told that doing anything about the astronomical growth in the average size of motor vehicles would infringe on the freedoms of people to do whatever they want. But your freedom to swing your arm ends where my face begins, and SUVs are a giant punch in the face to everyone who doesn't drive one. In short, SUVs are oversized, ridiculous, unnecessary death machines that are literally killing people, even their own drivers. So let's look at why they're so popular.
Except that I think that that's just kind of a problem that further compounds itself, Double Chinsey. Because I think once there are bigger cars, people have a tendency to make even bigger cars. You know, like the cars just keep getting bigger, which makes it ironically less safe for everybody.
If you went back in time about 40 years, you wouldn't really see any SUVs. If you lived in a rural area, you might see a small pickup truck or a bare-bones Jeep used for hunting or farming. But until fairly recently, pretty much everybody drove a car or
What do you think of people who slash SUV tires and put those anti-SUV leaflets on their windshield? I think that they're giant assholes.
maybe a van.
This isn't a problem that can be solved by just slashing every SUV tire you see. You know, like it's a systemic problem and it requires a systemic solution.
But today, light trucks and SUVs make up almost 80% of all new car sales in the US. 80%. The auto industry has been heavily pushing these vehicles for years, and it's been done to avoid regulations, meaning more profit for car manufacturers. This is possible because in America, SUVs are classified as light trucks, which aren't subject to the
Holy shit, that truck is huge. Holy shit. It's like 3 of the car in front of it.
same safety and emission standards as cars. Light trucks originally referred to commercial vehicles that needed to carry or tow heavy loads or traverse difficult terrain. To facilitate this, light trucks have large engines and stiff frames, both of which are disastrous for fuel economy and safety, but more on that in a second. And it all started because of these chickens. In 1962, Europe placed a heavy import tax on American chickens.
It all comes back to chickens, baby.
In retaliation, America levied import taxes of their own. They specifically targeted European light trucks that were typically used by small businesses, and since foreign automakers were already producing better and cheaper cars, the declining American auto industry really wanted to shift to a vehicle where they didn't have to compete, because, competition is for suckers. So that carved out light trucks as its own category in America, but what really kicked off the explosion of SUVs was, ironically, fuel efficiency regulations. The Corporate Average Fuel Economy, or CAFE standards, required all automobile manufacturers in the US to improve the average fuel economy of their entire fleet or face financial penalties. But here's the catch. American automakers lobbied hard so that light trucks were classified differently than passenger cars. This was necessary, they argued, because unlike cars, light trucks were used by honest
Non-binary superpowers, that also still sounds like an asshole thing to do. My dad has a massive pickup truck with an extended bed he got from his dad, who owned a firework business. My dad is a social studies teacher who never uses the bed of his truck, but he can't get rid of it because it'll destroy his masculinity. It's a gas guzzler. Wait, why would getting rid of I genuinely don't understand this. Why would getting rid of a truck to buy a more sensible vehicle destroy your sense of masculinity? I genuinely don't understand that, and maybe it's because I'm autistic, but seems weird. What's more sensible? I don't know, a smaller, more gas-efficient vehicle that's safer? I don't know. I'm also a lady, but I like to feel like I have some insight into the masculine mindset. Unironically, they don't realize that they see the stupid big truck as a form of gender affirmation. Is that true? Okay, but is that actually true? Is it true that men view trucks as an extension of their masculinity? Is that true? Wait, I'm gonna look that up. There must be studies on this. Let's see. Okay, let's see. Found a study here published in Frontiers in Sociology in 2022. Let's see, it's called Even More Than That, Men Love Cars, car guy memes and hegemonic masculinity. Let's see here. Let's read the abstract to see if this gets to what we're thinking about. The construction of gender identities occurs through a variety of social forces, including memes widely circulated on social media. Beyond the function of internet memes as entertainment, they also promote gender-based bonding through humor in ways that encourage performative gender roles central to self-image. Decoding memes as a form of contemporary data reveals desires and fears, both conscious and unconscious, that underlie dramaturgical performances supporting hegemonic masculinity. In the case of car guys, car aficionados whose passion for cars is integral to their identity, memes reflect the group's aspirational presentation of self, including cars, as a symbolic physical embodiment of hegemonic masculinity. This semiotic study of 60 car guy memes shared on social media uncovered recurrent motifs centered around cars' ability to affirm men's position in the metaphorical driver's seat. Flashy cars were often portrayed as more desirable than women, a sentiment encapsulated by the meme, "Men love women, but more than that, men love cars." This novel analysis of memes explores the ostensible male preference for fantasy cars over emotionally risky relationships. Two salient themes relevant to conceptions of masculinity emerged. One, car guys' apprehensions about male-female interdependence, and two, frustration with women's discretion in meeting men's emotional and sexual needs. Memes as a cross-sectional, unfiltered data source provide insight into the need to reconcile car culture with gender equality. Okay. So it does seem that there is an element of car culture, or the culture around cars, that does encourage men to, like, identify with their vehicle. So that's actually pretty interesting. That's actually super interesting. You guys can look it over for yourselves here. I didn't know if that was like something that was just a like kind of like a common belief but wasn't actually reflected in reality, or if it was an actual real thing. And it does seem to be kind of a real thing, though I would hazard a guess that this is most prevalent in like people who are deep into the culture of cars. And as you kind of get divorced from that that culture or subgroup, I'm guessing that the implications become like more of like a social pressure rather than like a part of the group kind of dynamic, you know?
Hardworking, red-blooded American patriots like this guy. I asked an AI art program to make this picture for me, which is why he has this dead look on his face and his pickup has an extra door hanging off the side. So rather than build cars that met cafe standards, auto manufacturers were incentivized to get as many people to buy light trucks as possible. The first SUVs could be
So basically the reason we have SUVs in the first place is to circumvent the requirement to have like gas efficient cars. Literally the reason we have this is so that we don't have to build cars well. Cool. The auto industry in America just said, nah, fuck building cars that run well. That's too hard, I guess.
Classified as light trucks because they were built in the same factories and using the same body-on-frame construction as traditional pickup trucks. These SUVs were basically pickup trucks with a longer roof. This allowed American car manufacturers to save a lot of money by using existing design parts and factories, and of course, it also allowed them to avoid any regulations for passenger vehicles, including safety regulations, because these were, after all, light trucks. So this saved the auto manufacturers a lot of money and avoided regulations, but there was a problem. How were they going to convince people to buy a vehicle that was impractical, uncomfortable, ugly, and dangerous? The book High and Mighty, written by a Detroit automobile journalist and published in 2002, documents the history of how SUVs came to be, and it was one of the books that helped radicalize me against car dependency. And while this book is rather out of date today, the history of the SUV is still very relevant. The earliest SUVs were Jeeps marketed to rich guys who went hunting on the weekends. Marketers used this outdoorsy image to lure people who wanted to be cool.
Oh, is that why they had wood paneling? Oh my god, that's exactly why they had wood paneling. Holy shit. I never put that together in my head until now, but that's exactly... Yeah, okay. Damn, I'm learning a lot about cars.
Hey, you might live in suburbia and work a super lame desk job in a business park, but you're still the kind of guy who might maybe someday go on a camping trip, and this is the car to do it in. No, don't look at that significantly more practical car over there. Station wagons are for losers and boomers. And this marketing approach saw some modest success, but the real winning strategy was to make scared people feel safe. Early focus groups showed that Americans
Yeah, yeah. It's not even about being safe, it's about feeling safe. Very big difference.
were obsessed with crime and violence, so automobile manufacturers took advantage of that. The city is a big, scary place. Protect yourself with a big, stupid car. That's how we got ads that say, think of it as a 4,000-pound guardian angel.
Holy shit. Oh man. You know, I feel like a lot of people, if you ask them individually, will say, no, advertising doesn't work on me. Okay? Advertising doesn't work on me, alright? But the reality is, we imbibe so much advertising that we feel like it doesn't work on us. But in reality, it shifts our opinions and it internalizes the messaging we find in ads, right? And in fact, if you don't believe ads work on you, that actually makes them so much more effective, it's ridiculous. Like, if you're the kind of person who's like, ads don't work on me, ads like are guaranteed to basically influence your thinking in far more invasive ways than you might but Jack, I'm autism. Even autists, okay? I've seen some like fast food commercials that make me go yum yum. Okay? I've seen it. I've seen it happen. I've felt the grumble in my tumble.
And this one that says, let nature worry about you for a change, which addresses the incredibly common suburbanite problem of crocodiles attacking you from trees. This also...
Okay, but to be fair, if that was a problem, that would be a valid reason to buy one of these things. If you live in a place where there are alligators and crocodiles living in the trees, you have a pass to own an SUV.
Turned road safety into an arms race. Whoever has the biggest vehicle wins, and so vehicles became bigger and more aggressive every year. It's got to the point where you can't even buy a small, practical, fuel-efficient car in America anymore, even if you wanted to. When we lived in Brussels, for example, we owned a Toyota Aygo, which was perfect for our family, but Toyota doesn't even sell this model in America. I wonder why. So where does it all end?
Damn.
When everyone is driving tanks? Ha ha ha! Tanks! What a fun...
Yeah. We did basically say, hey, look at all those cool tanks in Iraq and Afghanistan. Let's just drive those in the US for fun. Everyone should drive. Yeah, look, if your car doesn't have the horsepower to drive, just plow through like a cement block building, what are you even driving? Okay, what kind of weak ass shit are you behind the wheel of?
Funny joke, right? Except that this is one of the largest Sherman tanks from World War II. And this is a Cadillac Escalade. Yeah.
Damn. That's... okay. Yeah, but, you know, maybe cars could be a little smaller, you know? Maybe we could just not drive SUVs. I'm kind of sold, just on this size comparison alone.
Incidentally, the website where I got these images of cars, SUVs, and trucks, but not tanks, is carsize.com, an excellent and addictive site that lets you easily compare the sizes of many different kinds of vehicles. They were also nice enough to let me use their vehicle photos in this video, so check them out. I put a link in the description, but like, just type in carsized.com yourself. It's really not that hard. It's incredibly depressing that SUVs were marketed as being safer because their classification as light trucks has been disastrous for actual safety. One of the most dangerous things about SUVs is their bumper height. American cars are required to have bumpers between 16 to 20 inches off the ground, but surprise, light trucks don't have to deal with that regulation, so they can have their bumpers pretty much as high as they want. SUVs were also stiffer than cars. The original light trucks were built to haul or tow heavy weights, which means they needed a heavier, stiffer chassis. Rather than crumpling in a crash like a car frame, which distributes energy and acts as a protective cushion, the chassis on a light truck acted like a battering ram, and the people inside became the crumple zone. Combine that with a high bumper and you run into a problem known as crash compatibility.
I'm sorry. Yeah, just average average SUV right here.
The chassis on a light truck acted like a
Holy
battering ram,
shit.
and the people inside became the crumple zone. Combine that with a high bumper, and you run into a problem known as crash compatibility. When two normal sized cars crash into each other, they are compatible in that their safety features are pretty much aligned and designed to work together, which provides more protection to the drivers of both cars. But when a regular car and an SUV crash into each other, the bigger, higher, stiffer vehicle doesn't line up with the smaller car's safety features, which can make the crash more deadly. Of course, it's even worse for anyone outside of a car. When a person gets hit by a car, they're typically thrown onto the hood. This can
Yeah,
cause
I
injury to
talked
the
about
lower
that.
legs, which sucks, but generally doesn't kill you at low speeds. But the higher front end of an SUV means the impact is centered near the torso and head, which is much more deadly. People hit by SUVs are also more likely to hit their head on the ground or go under the vehicle thanks to their high ground clearance. And in case it isn't obvious, it's a
Nah, crash test folks do silly things with cars.
bad thing to be underneath a gigantic, heavy, light truck. And what makes this all even more insane is that most of the features that make SUV drivers feel safe.
How does someone get hit by a car in the Have you seen people drive cars? Some people are very bad at driving cars. And some people deliberately run their car into people. Or run red lights. Or, turn without looking. There are a lot of ways people get hit by cars.
Actually make them more dangerous. Many buyers say they wanted an SUV because you sit up high while driving them, which gives better visibility, but that's not really true. It might make it easier to see farther down the road, but it's actually harder to see stuff right in front of you. The advocacy group Kids and Cars put 17 children in front of an SUV and they couldn't see any of them from the driver's seat.
Yeah, no, cars are safer to get hit by. I mean, which would you rather get hit by? A 6 to 10 foot wall of metal? Or like something that is gently sloped up? I know which one I would rather get hit by if I had to choose one. And it's the one that gently slopes up. It has a better chance of me not dying.
Since the introduction of SUVs, there has been a massive increase in what are called front overs, a person, usually a child, getting run over by an SUV by a driver who can't even see them. Kids and Cars have been documenting the rise of front overs in America, and the results are shocking. But before we move on, I want you to look at this chart and understand what you're seeing. This is saying that over a 10-year period, over 500 American children were killed by being run over by SUVs.
Yeah, like...
Hi, my name's Nicholas Daines and I'm a professional stuntman in the film and television industry. To become a stuntman is to become a member of one of the most exclusive groups in the acting profession.
The stunt world is a highly trained, professional, close-knit community. It's the job that every youngster thinks they can do, and that thousands of others would like to do.
We've got a busy day filming ahead of us. I'm going to perform 3 stunts that we use every single day in the film business. And I'm going to start with a car knockdown. I performed one of these recently in Hollywood on a show called Death Valley for MTV, and it's a really cool stunt to start with. For a car knockdown, you need to be really padded. So I've protected all the vital areas with elbows, knees, hips, and a back pad. Nobody teaches you how to get hit by a car, so one of the vital aspects of being a stunt performer is on-the-job training. For a car knockdown, essentially I'll be drawing on my gymnastic ability and adapting it to create the stunt off the bonnet of the car. Essentially, it's all a question of timing. A split second before the car will make contact with my legs, I'll actually perform a side somersault action onto the bonnet of the car.
For a stunt like this, camera position is crucial, which is why we've got the action covered by one main camera and 2 GoPro cameras mounted on the car. Once everything is in place, then it's time for the real thing.
Oh my word! Oh my goodness gracious me!
Now, I know that this is just a stunt, and it's not real life. However, you can see how this is a stunt made possible by the fact that this car only has this size of a front. You can't do this stunt. You can't do this stunt on an SUV. Because it will just fucking obliterate you. You have to do it in a different way. But most people, when they get hit by a car, do wind up rolling up on top and then getting thrown off onto the ground. But that still results in injuries to the lower body, but not to the head. The thinky part. You need the thinky part to live. You also need your legs, but you need them a little bit less than the thinky part.
Usually by their own parents in their own
Wait.
by an SUV, more dangerous. Many buyers say they wanted an SUV because you sit up high while driving them, which gives better visibility, but that's not really true. It might make it easier to see farther down the road, but it's actually harder to see stuff right in front of you. The advocacy group Kids in Cars put 17 children in front of an SUV and they couldn't see any of them from the driver's seat.
Oh my... Holy shit. That's a lot of kids to have in front of a car and not be able to see. That's like practically an entire school bus full of children.
Since the introduction of SUVs, there has been a massive increase in what are called frontovers, a person, usually a child, getting run over by an SUV by a driver who can't even see them. Kids and Cars have been documenting the rise of frontovers in America, and the results are shocking. But before we move on, I want you to look at this chart and understand what you're seeing. This is saying that over a 10-year period, over 500 American children were killed by being run over by SUVs, usually by their own parents in their own driveways. This is insane.
Gruntcore, have you ever met a child? Have you ever met a child before? Have you ever met a child? They don't have survival instincts. They will literally just yeet themselves into the road. The problem that is being pointed out here is that if you're driving a car, you can see a child yeet themselves into the road, usually with enough of a chance to stop your vehicle before you flatten that child. No one lets their children play in the street! Sometimes children just run into the street because they're children! Holy shit! Yeah, like it's like you're in my chat being like, huh, those stupid children shouldn't have been running in the street. As like you go ba-dum, 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 over like 12 children in your SUV. Like what? Yeah, you know who's driving cars? Adults. Adults that have a responsibility to not kill children. I can't. I'm just wondering why they would be near the street in the first place. If you can't think of that, I can't help you, okay? If you can't think of a reason why children might be outside, near a place that has streets, I guess I just can't. I can't explain that to you. Okay, that's a level of discourse I can't sink to. Moving on.
Insane. This is legitimately insane. In any civilized society, this information alone.
This is how many children it takes for an SUV driver to be able to see a child. If that child is anywhere within this range of the car, of the SUV, it cannot see them. That seems like a gigantic problem.
would be enough to regulate the hood design of SUVs and light trucks. But
No, a lot of apples. Nobody has houses near a street. Nobody lives near a street. Lot of apples. No individual, no human being, no family with children lives in a place near a street. That'd be silly. That'd be stupid.
instead, the industry solution for this is proximity sensors and front-facing cameras, because car companies are happy for any regulations that means they can sell you more stuff. Now, I personally believe that drivers should be looking at the road and not a screen inside their SUV, but hey, what do I know? I'm just a weirdo.
Yeah, you know, schools aren't on streets. Everyone knows that schools are separated from streets by a 1-mile safety zone of grass filled with landmines to prevent any school shooters from going there. Didn't know kids play in the road nowadays? Kids have literally played in the road for like the entire time we've had roads, my dude. The fuck?
Who objects to children
Anyway.
being run over by trucks. If you agree with me, then you can sign the Consumer Reports petition, link in the description. Light trucks are usually four-wheel drive as well, which is pitched as another safety feature. Four-wheel drive is great for accelerating in slippery conditions like mud, but what four-wheel drive doesn't do is help you slow down. That means overconfident SUV drivers can go as fast as they want in bad conditions, as long as they're not planning on stopping.
Now, I will say four-wheel drive as a Minnesotan is like an absolute must. Like, I live in the land of snow and ice. Four-wheel drive is amazing. But you can get four-wheel drive on things that aren't SUVs.
Maybe that's fine in a rural setting, but these land yachts are all over American cities. I once drove across Texas in the middle of a once-in-a-decade snowstorm, and there was literally a light truck in the ditch
Yeah, well, I have a Subaru Forester Salmon Moose.
every few miles, while my rear-wheel drive Oldsmobile pushed through without any issues. Though part of this is because SUV owners are more likely to be bad drivers. That's not just my opinion. Car companies paid millions of dollars for market research to find this out.
Yeah, like Subaru Forester is probably the biggest, I would say, like cars should be.
People who gravitate toward SUVs tend to be less confident in their driving abilities and rely on the large size of the vehicle to keep them quote-unquote safe, at the expense of everyone.
Well, Deadeye Dick, who would ever allow children to play in a driveway or a parking lot? That's just crazy. That's insane. That's literally never happened in the history of anything.
Else. What made this even worse is that in the early days, most SUV buyers were assholes. I'm not being flippant and suggesting that all SUV drivers were assholes, but assholes were
I do drive a lesbian stereotype, but it makes me very happy.
literally the primary target market when automakers wanted to make SUVs mainstream. Auto industry research determined that the average light truck purchaser was obsessed with status, less likely to volunteer or feel a strong connection to their communities, less giving, less oriented toward others, more afraid of crime, more likely to text and drive, more likely to take risks.
Wait, really? If you're driving an SUV, you're driving like a literal tank. And you're more likely to text and drive? What the fuck? Man.
Risks while driving, and more likely to think stuff like this looks cool. What the?
Okay, but that does kind of look cool though.
10 years ago, a baby-faced Mark Rober put plastic animals on the side of the road to see which ones were most likely to get hit. He found that some drivers would purposefully swerve to run over the animals,
Oh.
and 89% of those people who tried to murder animals were driving SUVs.
What the okay, this is a very informal study, but like, even so, what the actual fuck? Who swerves to hit animals on purpose? I'm not a vegan, and that is horrible still. Like, Jesus Christ. Man, if you find out that the person you're dating, or like a friend of yours, is the kind of person who would deliberately try and run over animals with their car, that's like one of the biggest red flags that I can imagine, you know? Like like if that person in your life is deliberately murdering animals, that's like just a step removed from murdering you, okay?
Yep, the market research is correct. These people are assholes. But you know what SUV drivers are typically not? Outdoorsy. SUVs are marketed for going off-road, towing a boat, or for going camping. But in reality, 75% of light truck owners tow something once a year or less, and 70% go off-road once a year or less. In fact, the vast majority of SUVs are driven in cities and will never go off-road. They are...
What about hunting for food for you and your family? Okay, look, if you run over an animal and then you like pull over and like pick it up to like make I don't know, rodent stew for your family, I guess that's okay.
just used for everyday tasks like commuting and buying groceries.
Well, yeah, no, look, there's a big difference between going out of your way to run over an animal and, like, accepting that you're going to hit an animal rather than, like, flip your car in, like, a panic to try and avoid it, you know?
I guess they go off-road when the
Do not put yourself at risk to avoid hitting an animal.
driver is texting and plows into a building or something. The most outdoorsy people...
Wait, I'm sorry.
Everyday tasks like commuting and buying groceries. Well, I guess they go off-road when the driver is texting and plows into a building or something.
Jesus Christ.
The most outdoorsy people I've met, those who regularly go hiking or camping, drive something like a Subaru Outback wagon because they're...
Subaru Outbacks are great. Subaru basically makes the Fireflies of cars. Subaru cars literally just go forever. They're amazing.
actual adventurous people, not just a bunch of posers in SUVs. And Americans seem to think you need some giant truck to tow anything, but you see all kinds of regular cars with trailers in Europe. And the Dutch in particular are famous for vacationing with their caravans pulled by normal cars. Though this recent example was extreme even by Dutch standards. And the reactions to this video will be extremely predictable. People will inevitably claim that these SUVs and pickup drivers need that space for all the stuff they're hauling.
Subaru makes lesbian cars. I mean, I can't say that I'm proving the stereotype wrong.
That somehow SUVs and pickup trucks went from niche rural vehicles to literally the most popular vehicles on the road because of some magical demographic shift that turned every American suburbanite into this guy. Wait, why does he have 6 fingers? And if you do live in a rural area, you might need to drive a light truck, and obviously that's fine and I don't care. But we're talking about suburbia here, and come on. You know as well as I do that the vast, vast, vast majority of drivers in these light trucks are carrying exactly 2 things. Their briefcase and their fat ass, and most people don't use a briefcase anymore. This is particularly true with so-called luxury SUVs. We all know these aren't hauling shit, right? And the Mercedes G-Wagon has to be the absolute dumbest luxury vehicle ever made. I can just imagine the conference room at Mercedes when these were designed.
How ugly, uncomfortable, and inefficient can we make this thing and still have these rich Volltrottel buy it?
We can't just ignore this and say it's personal choice, because SUVs are a huge problem for cities. Oversized SUVs take up more space and make congestion worse. Longer vehicles mean fewer cars get through a light, which means more people gunning it to get through a yellow or red and subsequently slamming into more people trying to cross the street. And parking, which is already disastrous in cities, is even worse because of SUVs, which take up more space at the curb. London, that's real London, is having problems with street parking because SUVs are getting longer so fewer parked vehicles can fit on a street. Hell, even in fake London, these stupid things don't even fit in the giant parking spaces. So new parking spots in new developments are being made bigger, which means bigger parking lots and even more paved surfaces in our cities. And you'll often find light trucks parked in driveways because they don't fit in a typical garage. SUVs are wider,
It's
too.
true.
Look at how much less space a cyclist has in a world full of light trucks. And the cyclist can't see or be seen over the roof of the truck either. These vehicles make the streets more dangerous for everyone outside of a car and put even more pressure on already crowded city streets. Of course, SUVs don't just hit people in bike lanes or crosswalks. Their off-road capability means it's easier for them to jump the curb and hit people on the sidewalk where they're supposed to be safe.
Oh, Jesus.
It's very likely that more SUVs on the road is a significant factor in the recent increase in pedestrian deaths in the USA, a trend that's not being seen in countries with sane vehicle sizes. And SUVs aren't just killing the people they run into, they're also doing it through pollution. The auto industry specifically promoted SUVs to avoid CAFE emission standards. It's so bad that SUVs are the second largest factor in the rise in emissions from 2010 to 2008.
What? Holy shit. Holy shit.
And if SUVs were a country, they would rank 7th in the world for carbon emissions.
Just SUVs create... oh my god.
Which is more than the Netherlands and UK combined.
Holy
Okay, I
fuck.
really don't want to think about the Netherlands and the UK combined. SUV apologists like to point out that modern SUVs are more fuel efficient than early models, but that comes from overall improvements in technology thanks to advancements in materials and manufacturing. But a big heavy SUV is always going to use more fuel and have higher emissions than the same technology applied to a lighter car. This is just basic physics. It takes more work to move something heavier. This is going to cause a huge problem with the necessary transition to electric vehicles too, because the heavier the vehicle, the more batteries are required to move it, and the bigger and heavier those batteries need to be. For the electric Hummer, the batteries alone weigh more than an entire typical European car.
Oh my god.
A few years ago, I made a video about the adoption of electric microcars here in the Netherlands. And I often see light electric trucks like these on the streets as well.
Those seem delightful.
But the gut reaction from many North Americans
Holy shit. Look at how delightful this tiny truck is. Oh my god. I want to see these. These are amazing. Look at how tiny it is.
is to call these death machines. But why? It's because North Americans have been conditioned to believe that you need a large heavy vehicle in order to be safe on the roads. We should be moving to lighter electric vehicles that require smaller batteries with better range, lower cost.
I mean, like, I'd be okay with, like, the car sizes we have now being electric. That is fine. These small cars, great. Let's have as many of them as we can, okay? But, like, if we just kept cars at the size they are now, that'd be fine. Let's get rid of, like, the fucking walls of death SUVs.
And fewer resources needed to make them, but we're going in exactly the opposite direction, where even the smallest Tesla has a curb weight of over 1,600 kilograms, significantly more than a similarly sized Toyota Yaris sedan.
Damn, okay.
And okay, I gotta say, what the hell is up with the sport in sport utility vehicle? Are we really that stupid? There is absolutely nothing sporty about any of this. Oh yeah, feel the burn. So at this point in the video, I've likely pissed off every truck owner, and they're furiously writing long, angry comments about how they absolutely require an SUV for whatever reason. So let's say you live somewhere car dependent. You have 2.3 kids, routinely need to stop by Home Depot, and you want to head out into the wilderness more than once a decade. Well, I've got good news, because I've got the perfect vehicle for you. A station wagon. The thing that literally every family used before auto manufacturers convinced people to buy the light trucks that made them more money. That's an estate car for all you Brits out there. Station wagons are more useful than SUVs for almost everyone in a city. They're easier to get in and out of, they're more maneuverable, and much easier to park in cities where, again, almost all SUV driving takes place. SUVs are built to be cool and curvy so that aging Gen Xers can pretend they never became parents, but this means that the actual usable space inside is shockingly low. The monstrously large Cadillac Escalade has 25.5 cubic feet of carrying space behind the last.
I like minivans, but also minivans could be smaller too, okay? You don't need to take the entire soccer team for Kool-Aid, okay? Just you don't need to do that.
Row of seats, which is less than something
I
like
mean, the reality is that these cars aren't safe. They're more dangerous to the public at large, and they create more pollution that is going to kill the planet. I don't know. Seems bad.
like a Subaru Outback or Audi A6 Allroad, both of which have over 30. But the numbers are deceiving because the fancy design means the usable space in an Escalade is surprisingly small. Of course, you can take out the rear seats of an Escalade, but you can fold down the seats of a station wagon too. SUVs hold much less than you'd think
Fox
because
of Fate,
so much
sure.
space is wasted by fancy styling, unnecessarily high ground clearance, car-smashing bumpers, and pedestrian-killing hoods. And of course, I'm not saying that you can't carry stuff in an Escalade, only that you don't need an Escalade to carry stuff. Have you ever tried to move a bunch of stuff with a station wagon? I have many times. It's a wide open rectangular cuboid of spacious goodness. A station wagon is a superior vehicle for families, more storage space, better fuel efficiency, and plenty of room for kids, which is why they're still very common in Europe. The reason you don't see station wagons in the US
Damn, European station wagons actually look pretty cool.
anymore is because automakers could make more money convincing Jennifer, Mike, Dave, Amy, and Kimberly that station wagons were uncool, because apparently this is cool. And if you really need a lot of space or extra
Trumpy
seating on a
bear.
regular basis, a minivan beats an SUV every time. I've seen this myself when we once booked a large taxi to the airport and they sent a Suburban. Our luggage wouldn't
Florida,
even
what are
fit in
you
the
doing?
back, and we had to put some of it on our laps. But when we got to our destination, our taxi was a minivan and everything fit comfortably in the back. A minivan will hold more stuff, and it's easier for passengers to get in and out of too because the doors are bigger and it's lower to the ground. But after a few decades, Americans are getting bored of SUVs, so automakers are trying to promote pickup trucks as the new family vehicle, which is even more ridiculous. At least SUVs had a cover over your cargo. Of course, Ford knows this is ridiculous too. While they were promoting the F-150 pickup to Americans as the perfect family vehicle, they used the exact same marketing language to market the 7-seat S-Max to Europeans,
Hearses are cool. I'd drive a hearse.
because European regulations make it harder to profit from upselling people to light trucks. Let's be really clear here. American automakers are not promoting SUVs and pickup trucks because they're practical. They do it because it makes them more money.
Bingo.
It's very apparent in Europe that actual tradespeople, the people who actually need a vehicle with lots of space on a regular basis, almost universally choose vans. A typical European van will easily carry more than a pickup truck and certainly more than an SUV, and the lower bed is easier to load too. I really struggle to understand how a DHL delivery driver can do his job with a Kangoo van, but a middle-aged suburbanite thinks they need a Chevy Silverado to buy groceries. And to be fair, these vans can get quite big, but that space is used to make it efficiently carry lots of stuff. And they still have a design that is safer in a crash and gives the driver good visibility, proving that it is possible to provide all the goods and services a city needs without needlessly murdering people. One of these vehicles is designed to efficiently carry lots of useful stuff, while the other is designed to carry fragile egos. And I'm not even going to go into the fact that so many professionals here in the Netherlands, whether they're a handyman or doing package delivery, can do their job just fine using cargo bikes. A pickup truck is mostly
Yo, cargo bikes. I've literally never seen that. That's so cool.
useful if you're loading heavy, dirty items into the bed, like on a farm or construction sites. So outside of the US, that's usually the only place you'll find them. For almost any other use case, for moving people or cargo, a van or minivan is a better option. And the thing that frustrates me the most about all this is that when city advocates complain about the insane growth in oversized trucks in our cities, a bunch of people come out of the woodwork claiming that those drivers really need that cargo space. But consider that the Ford F-150 was the single most popular vehicle sold in America in 2022. Literally number one.
I've never seen a cargo bike because I live in the Midwest where you need a car to get anywhere. Like if you live in the Midwest of America, like you need a car to get anywhere. Like most cities in the Midwest aren't walkable. And even if they are theoretically walkable, they're not designed to be practically walkable. So cargo bikes just aren't really feasible here in a way that, say, in a more compact area like the Netherlands they might be, or hell, even in like I don't know, LA, maybe they're more viable, but not so much here. Outside of like novelty like pedal pub things, you know?
Yet 40 years ago, in 1982, the number one vehicle was the Ford Escort. Are you seriously telling me the cargo hauling behavior of Americans has changed that much in 40 years? Are you really proposing that all of these empty pickup trucks you see all over the US and Canada with pristine shiny tailgates are just extremely careful construction workers that just happen to be between loads? Or is it the much more likely explanation that these people have been upsold on these vehicles by automakers looking to skirt regulations to make higher profits? In fact, these pickup trucks have become heavier and less practical over the past 40 years. This Axios article is a great read, link in the description, but the best part is this graphic showing how the size of the truck bed has changed over the years. These are clearly morphing from practical farm vehicles into status symbols for insecure suburbanites with a cargo fetish. And to be perfectly blunt, it's pretty insulting to our intelligence to suggest that all these new pickup trucks are really needed for hauling.
Oh god,
But
I
as
sneezed
extended
so
cab
hard we got
pickups
to...
become the new...
I sneezed so hard Google had to ask me if I needed help. Oh my god. Holy shit. I'm...
suburban assault vehicles to wine moms everywhere, there's been a surge in interest in older pickup models as actual contractors seek vehicles that are more practical. They are easier to load because they're lower to the ground, easier to maneuver and park at job sites, and the size of the bed is usually larger too. You can still order a new pickup with a longer bed, but they're a special order that can take months to arrive, while you can drive an extended cab pickup off the lot today. The only guy who shows up on the job site in the shiny new
F-150 Raptor Super Crew
is the owner's son who's cosplaying as a blue-collar laborer. So SUVs and light trucks are oversized impractical vehicles which were heavily marketed to impressionable people because they make more money for automakers by skirting regulations. And while the average SUV buyer in the early 2000s was likely a sociopath and or easily manipulated by marketing, nowadays, it's not so clear. American automakers have literally turned off the production of station wagons, sedans, and smaller vehicles to focus almost exclusively on the more lucrative market for light trucks. People argue that consumers prefer SUVs and automakers are just responding to demand, but that demand is coming off the back of billions of dollars in advertising and marketing pushed because SUVs are artificially cheaper than they should be thanks to the light truck exemption. And as the road safety arm race makes vehicles bigger, people are rationally concerned about their safety and gravitate toward larger vehicles to protect themselves. So a new class of vehicle has emerged, the crossover, which is an SUV built on a car frame instead of a truck frame. But fundamentally, these are just cars that are bigger than they need to be. Cars with more ground clearance than is necessary, cars with a higher bumper than is safe, cars with lower fuel economy than if they were lighter. But they're popular because people are rightfully scared about sharing the road with giant SUVs and pickup trucks. So I can't really blame Americans for wanting to buy SUVs and crossovers today. I would probably do the same thing if I were forced to live somewhere like this. Of course, the most vulnerable people are those who can't participate in the arms race. Everyone who's not in a car.
Oh, Link is bad. That's okay.
So what are we going to do about it? The first solution is to close the light truck loophole that allows these ridiculous vehicles on the road in the first place. Light trucks should be required to meet all the same safety standards as every other passenger vehicle, and they need to be safer in crashes, lighter, and have much better fuel economy. Unfortunately, the recent changes to the CAFE standards in 2021 still have the light truck exemption in place. And even some crossovers like the Honda CR-V and Toyota RAV4 can be put in the light truck category, depending on how they're configured. The US could also remove the import restrictions and duties on light trucks that are still around today. They're the reason why you won't see smaller, more practical, foreign-built trucks like these in American cities. And you won't see these small electric trucks coming to market there either. What's also desperately needed for all vehicles is for pedestrian crash tests and crash compatibility to have a more prominent role in determining safety ratings. And now that light trucks are mainstream vehicles, they should be tested for safety and fuel efficiency the exact same way that other vehicles are. For example, in the US, the frontal crash tests done by the NHTSA are only done with vehicles in the same weight class.
What?
Why do we accept this? It's not like SUVs have their...
Wait, that's fucking insane. That is insane. They should be tested against, like, the things that can hit them. That includes other cars and bigger cars.
own class of roads. All vehicles share the same roads, so they should all be crash compatible with one another. I'd like to see different classes of vehicles tested against each other and to dock points if a vehicle causes significant damage to vehicles of another class. Cities in particular should be doing a lot more to regulate SUVs. They go against every goal that cities have: to reduce the effects of climate change, to reduce pedestrian deaths, to reduce traffic, to maintain roads, and to make best use of the limited space available. Cities should tax vehicles by weight and limit vehicles with bumpers that are too high, or require commercial driver's licenses to operate them. Parking permits for longer vehicles should be more expensive to compensate for the lost space. Licensing and insuring SUVs should be more expensive too. And since a big part of road safety is the kinetic energy of the crash, which comes from mass and velocity, then if the weight keeps increasing, we should be decreasing the speed. In other words, cities can and should be lowering speed limits in response to heavier vehicles. These are all
Seems
great
reasonable.
ideas, but right now, cities are doing basically nothing to stop the spread of SUVs and pickup trucks. Here in the Netherlands, cars are taxed more depending on their weight, but the increase is minimal. And North American cities are doing even less. Washington, D.C. will introduce a higher vehicle registration fee for heavier vehicles, but this only applies to the absolute highest weight class of over 6,000 pounds. So with effectively nothing being done to slow the adoption of heavier vehicles, some people are taking matters into their own hands. A group
They can
calling themselves
find.
the Tire Extinguishers have started deflating the tires of SUVs in Europe.
It's unclear whether this is a crime.
Their stated goal is to
I'm pretty sure that's a crime. It would be in the United States anyway.
make it impossible to own an SUV in the city. Now, obviously, this is really extreme behavior, but let's be clear. This group only exists because of the complete and utter regulatory silence that has come from city and federal governments when it comes to curbing the problems caused by SUVs in cities. And even if the US is too far gone, European cities need to deal with this issue immediately. SUVs and crossovers now account for 40% of all vehicles sold in
Damn.
the EU, a 900% increase since 2001.
Damn.
I don't think
What the
Europeans
hell?
realize how bad this can get. I hear people justifiably complaining
Yeah,
about
in the United States, that would definitely be grounds to like fucking execute somebody.
the infestation of giant Land Rovers in European cities. But look at how small this Range Rover looks next to a full-sized American SUV. Europe needs to
Yeah, like that's the thing, right? Macabre centric. Like, people do need especially in the United States. If you aren't able to get somewhere with your car, you're fucked. Like, you're so fucked. It's not like you have the option of like public transit, or to walk, or to take a bike. No, you're just fucked.
to get ahead of SUVs and pickup trucks now before more Europeans end up under them. Fundamentally, SUVs are a plague on cities. They're impractical, dangerous, expensive, and polluting, but car manufacturers have spent billions of dollars to convince you to think otherwise. Don't fall for it. Let your local representatives know you're not okay with these suburban assault vehicles taking over our roads. Ultimately, this really is about freedom. The freedom to get around however we want. The freedom to drive...
Yeah, generally speaking, if you walk up and you see someone fucking with your car, people generally get pretty upset.
A small and efficient car without worrying about the road safety arms race. Or even better, the freedom to not to have to drive. To get around by walking, cycling, and public transit without the constant threat of serious injury or death from bloated, oversized trucks.
Like, man, I cannot wrap my head around the fact that, like, this place exists and people don't need to, like, drive cars here in order to live. Like, you can just ride bikes or ride this, like, fancy little light rail type thing. Like, I can't wrap my head around that. That's crazy. This just kind of seems normal. The thing is, you would never... There's literally nowhere in the United States you can go where a street would look like this. Not anywhere in the entire country.
And finally, since the typical light truck driver is so status obsessed, let's
Like, San Francisco has trams, but I'm sorry, you're still gonna find a lot of fucking cars in San Francisco.
use that to our advantage. So when you see someone driving a truck like this, let them know they look like a f***ing idiot. Get a station wagon, loser. If you've made it this far into the video without rage quitting, then you might just be ready to learn more
I really hate Not Just Bike's voice, but I do find his videos very informative.
about good urbanism. It's not about hating cars, it's about building wonderful cities that are designed for people. Though admittedly, the smaller the cars, the better. But you don't just have to take my word for it. Online urbanism has become a movement, and we're spoiled for choice when it comes to great creators these days. And did you know—
I thought the first half of this video helped. This last kind of, like, I don't know, several minutes has been irritating as hell. Ah, God. Now, I know that was a lot of information to take in. But did you know, chat, that we have now been live for over 2 hours? And if you've been enjoying the show, please remember to hit the follow button and consider throwing some subs bits, or you can use !tip to tip me directly. And I would encourage you to do so, because if you don't, I will die and this show will no longer be able to be produced. Legally, I take all of the tapes with me to my grave. Honest question, if we became more reliant on bikes and public transit, there'd be a lot of obese people who would not be able to get around. How do we address this? Because I can't bike up a hill because I'm overweight. Well, you can still take public transit.